President Trump, Washington Hilton, April 25th. In today's episode of The Hard Corner, Eric and Dale are going to go over what happened. You know, the media is covering the evacuation, the charges, the politics. Nobody's asking the operational questions. And those are the only questions that actually matter if you want to understand what happened that night. In their time at SWAT, Dale and Eric have been inside that protective bubble multiple times. They've stood where those Secret Service agents stood. Today, we're breaking down the footage, the timeline, the tactical decisions, from the checkpoint failure to the evacuation response, to the shots fired. This is Hard Corner. Let's get into it.
Hey guys, going to talk about the most recent attempt on the president's life. I think probably between the both of us, we probably worked 20 of these details-ish in our careers from different perspectives, whether it be officer or on the SWAT function to up to the command level. So we've got a pretty good experience with how these events are planned, how they're staffed, and the proper responses. Would that be accurate, do you think?
Yeah, I think over our careers, with all the presidential visits or whether it was a campaign visit, we were assigned those details in our city. Yep.
So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to break some videos down and just give you our perspective from kind of what we see from the limited information, because these things kind of over time, they morph. The information you get, I believe they just figured out within the last 2 days there was actually a BB or pellet from the actual shotgun from the shooter that actually struck the Secret Service agent, because for a while they had no idea who actually shot him.
Yeah, initially it didn't matter what incident you talk about. I'd say the first couple of days you're not going to get accurate information just because it's so preliminary. Mm-hmm. The investigators have to do their job to figure out all the information, but everybody's like wanting immediate, gratification. I need to know now, but in reality, it's going to be days or weeks before you know the full story.
So then we're really big on authenticity, and actually, in our branding and how we do things in our company, we're not going to be first to talk about something. We're going to talk about something when we realize what the most of the picture is. That's why we've given this some time to breathe, so we can get the best information available.
And we don't know everything either. We're also given a limited perspective. So we're going to go ahead and let you know that, we may not know all the details. We're going off what we do know and what's out there as of yet. But who's to say weeks from now, a month from now, whatever, we could learn more. So
absolutely. All right, Brent, if you want to go ahead and start and cue up that first video, please.
Okay, so let's kind of back out of that just for a second. Let's kind of set this up and understand exactly what this is. What we're looking at here is and I don't know how many checkpoints there were at this location, but the Secret Service, along with other local law enforcement, there could be state, city, county, other federal agencies that are going to be on site, and they're setting up what we call a perimeter. So you'll have layers of security. You'll have the exterior of the building. You'll have the interior of the building. You'll have, PSDs. You'll have personal security details. So there's multiple layers to this, and what we're just looking at is one of those, and we don't know how many there were, entry points into that facility.
I would say this too, just, if you want to bring the video back up, Brandon, we'll kind of break it down frame by frame. As you can tell here in a second. So
let's stop right
there.
So if you look right there, that's not a normal walk. Like, he's got his right arm cusping.
Tucked.
It's tucked. He may be holding the lapel of his jacket. Nobody walks like that. There's definitely something in that jacket. Now, I don't know if he carried a weapon in, but I would assume that there's something, and there are shotguns that have foldable stocks on them. So I've even seen people have rifles tucked down their pants.
Yep.
So to me, it looks like there's something in that jacket that he's bringing into that room.
I'll also say this too, that door, again, Eric said, we don't know how many checkpoints were erected, but they're breaking that one down. And that, to me, with the magnetometers there, would seem to be pretty close to the actual entrance up to where the actual event was happening. You'll notice too, you see a canine officer.
Well, actually, real quick, forget the canine. So I'm just going to use an analogy like a DUI checkpoint, like something a local police agency like ourselves would run in the past. When you set up a DUI checkpoint, you're not going to give a lot of exits in that line. So if we set up a checkpoint like out in the in the city, we're going to have a point where when you get to a certain point in that check, it's a point of no return.
You're done. Yeah.
So you cannot turn around. And if you attempted to turn around, that would cause a red flag. And now you have people watching for that. So my just personal observation, I don't like that open door next to a checkpoint where you can come in, stage up, get equipment, or even exit. You're allowing them to have freedom of movement. I would prefer a single corridor where you have no way to turn around and you're at point of no return.
Well, and also, we're having worked with these details for so many years. There's some of the best planned details I've ever worked. And did not have what we call it's called a post stander. So whether it be a federal or local officer at that door, and just have to have it open, to me is just so outside the norm.
Yeah, and those jobs are miserable. Like when you're standing on post for hours on end, whether you're a federal agent or whether you're a local officer, it's miserable. Like standing there, you can't move, you can't go to the bathroom, you can't take a break. You do not leave, no question asked, you're there.
And I'll say something too, and we'll cover this later as we go on the video. There's some other videos out there that shows like utter chaos and officers just running. On these details, you are to stay at your post no matter what, because that is your job. Because it could be a coordinated attack. There could be a second shooter, a third shooter. So
it could be a distraction. They're trying to pull you away from a certain location.
So to see then people, like some of the officers just running towards where they thought the gunfire happened from.
But let's get to that in a minute. Let's go back to the dog.
Shocking.
Let's talk about
shocking
the dog. It is. So, Brandon, if you don't mind, let's leave that video up for a second so people can see what we're talking about. So if you look at the dog, obviously there's a lot of attention right now on this dog. In our experience and our training, there's typically two kinds of dogs. You have patrol dogs that actually do bite work, where they are used to bite and hold suspects. And then you have article/bomb dogs.
Or,
drug dogs. Yeah. Those dogs are used for sniffing out, evidence, missing items, bombs, drugs, things like that. Now, in my experience on our agency, some of the patrol dogs were dual purpose. So they could be used for bite work or they could be used for some searching. Most of the bomb dogs were used by the supervisors, and they're not used on patrol. They're used more as a drug search or a bomb search only.
So neither of us was in canine, but we worked a lot with canines through our SWAT careers because we would implement them into our planning. I did have the chance to go to the canine school. So they'll pick dogs differently for the bomb work. And when we say bomb, they can also smell weapons, gunpowder, things of that nature. They're going to be more laid back dogs. So generally speaking, not as a rule, your patrol dogs and your drug dogs will be Malinois, Shepherds, Dutch Shepherds, German Shepherds. Mm-hmm. When I left, we had an Irish setter and a golden retriever as our two explosive detection dogs.
Yeah.
So the reason they want dogs that aren't aggressive is because they walk through crowds. So like they're actually walking through crowds. So if you've been to the airport before, I'm sure a lot of our watchers have, our viewers. I'm sorry, it's a better word. Sorry. You see those dogs that walk through the lines, And then the other thing I'll point out too, from our research, there's been a lot of stuff online like that dog, that handler didn't do what he's supposed to do. So obviously that dog was interested in that person, but dogs are trained to alert. When I say alert, they'll do a specific physical movement to let the handler know, hey, we need to check this out. And that dog never did.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a set. Sometimes they lay down.
Yep.
Most of the time, it's not a bark because you don't want to alert people.
It's a passive alert.
Yeah, it's a passive alert. So, Brennan, if you don't mind showing the video, you can see the dog. Like Dale says, it shows attention. If you could just leave the video up for a second, so the viewers can see what we're saying. And the guy's having a conversation. Now, obviously, the dog's alerted. It didn't really show based on, if you could kind of go back and just pause it there. The dog doesn't really alert as we're used to seeing, and the guy's having a conversation. Honestly, we don't know who he's talking to.
No, and then
we have no idea.
Secondarily, as you can tell, they're just let this go and play out, Brent. We'll just walk through it towards the end. So you see him run through there. It's obviously the shooter. You can also see. Go ahead and pause right there. I'm sorry. They're breaking this event down. So this must be close to the end of the event or everyone's seated. Unfortunately, in law enforcement, the longer event goes on, for the most part, a lot of people lose that vigilance. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, your vigilance is gone. So you're going to be out lackadaisical, not paying attention.
So that canine officer could have been there doing bomb sweeps at 6 a.m. He may have been there 18 hours. So we don't know, and we're not here to criticize law enforcement on the response. We're just here to point out what happened. And if you keep on playing it, you'll see some people run towards the door. They had TSA agents there. They're not law enforcement, so
They're not armed.
yeah. So there's been some hate online about them running. That's exactly what I would tell them to do, because that's not their job.
Yeah. So again, we're just trying to let the average person understand what's taking place. So that video is kind of zoomed in. Our next video that it kind of zooms out and gets a bigger picture. So we'll take it and kind of break that down as well to give you a better understanding. And like you said, man, these agents, these officers, we're not trying to criticize their actions. We're trying to break it down to understand this is not perfect. There's a lot of variables to this, a lot of layers, and we want you to understand multiple viewpoints.
And another reason we do this is we want people to understand like the reality behind this kind of stuff, because there's so much misinformation online about like, why do they do this? Why do they do that? So we just want to have a platform when we review stuff like this that actually gives people our insight from actually having worked and playing events like this or similar to this.
So real quick before you start, I want to do another little understanding. Actually, no, just leave the video up if you could, please. An understanding of Secret Service and how it's broke down. So the Secret Service are federal agents, and they have protection details, protection duties, whether it's the president, vice president, a number of other people that they protect. That is their full-time job when they're on those details. The agents that are out across the country that are working on other investigations or other activities across the country, they're not doing full-time protection details. They're doing investigations on fraud, money laundering, a number of like financial crimes. So they're out doing full-time investigative work. When a protectee comes to town, that's when that agent then goes into a part-time protection detail for that event. So understand that you're going to see a mix of that, along with, again, the TSA agents, the federal officers that are uniformed, because Secret Service has a uniform division. Those are the guys and the gals that are protecting the White House, things like that. They're in a police-like uniform. And then you have local and state officers. So one thing I want to point out before Dale kind of takes over, one thing that I see here, if you guys have ever seen a checkpoint for vehicles, you never want to give a vehicle that high-speed avenue of approach. You don't want that vehicle to give up to a certain speed and just take off through your checkpoint. So you're going to set up staggered obstacles or barriers.
Or stanchions.
Yeah, so that the vehicle can't go straight through your checkpoint. Same thing with people. You want them to have to zigzag through that checkpoint to slow them down so you don't give them that running start. And that's one thing I don't see in this picture here is that person, number one, has a place to pull off to. They go to that room to get prepped, and then they get immediate head start running through a checkpoint. So kind of the mistake number two here, and again, I don't know the operational details, but I would prefer to have some kind of checkpoint stanchion or some kind of Z pattern that person has to maneuver through.
And I'll point this out. We're not really focused on this particularly for this episode, but so this guy checks in the hotel the day before with 2 firearms. So I've worked with NYPD before. I'm up for New Year's Eve. And so if you're going to be New Year's Eve in Times Square in a hotel, they bomb sniff your car. They search your stuff, and then like everyone is vetted. So I'm not sure what the process was for this hotel, but for a guy to get into a hotel with 2 firearms the night before the president and a bunch of elected officials and famous people are going to be there.
And whether those firearms are brought in prior to or the day of,
right?
It's not going to happen.
But my point is like that's to me that's shocking.
Yeah,
really shocking. All right, Brent, go ahead.
So let's play this video all the way through one time, and then we'll break it down.
There he goes in.
Yep, walking in.
This wider angle does help.
Breaking down the gear.
Those officers are pacing. They're kind of bored.
All right.
All right. Let's kind of
let's
stop there.
No, let it play through. Let's let that play through.
Wow, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. All right, you can go and stop it.
All right.
So Eric and I watched this video together for the first time, 3 days ago? Did you have any idea that Secret Service uniformed officer shot 3 times? until we watched it?
Not until I watched it. When I watched it, I saw
We watched that video.
Flash.
So what people don't, I don't know if it's maybe out there in the media or not. Just play back, go to the beginning, and you'll see this Secret Service agent. I believe it's a female down the bottom left-hand corner. As he runs, the shooter runs through the magnetometer. Go ahead and when I tell you to pause, try to pause, and we'll try to time this up as best we can.
Here he comes running.
All right, she draws her weapon. Go ahead, one more pause.
There's a muzzle flash.
You see that muzzle flash? So she, which I believe it's a she, I don't want to misgender anybody, but they shot. Look at that backdrop. What do we see behind that person shooting? What do we see?
Other people.
Other people.
On multiple levels. You got a guy crouched down, you got 3 people standing on a wall,
Yep.
and you have another officer with a dog down that hallway.
Yeah, so that's what's called a horrible backdrop. Obviously, you want to have target identification, and you have to make sure you have a clean backdrop.
Target isolation.
That person just acted out of sheer, I don't know what.
Surprise.
Surprise. But even if that happens, like, that's not a shot I'm going to take. I'm going to get myself to a better spot if I've got to move. So if she would have pied the angle and moved to her right as he's running by her, it would have been better. But she decided, or he, to shoot right there. So go ahead, Brent.
So you'll see that's first shot. Second shot.
That's not as bad, but still. Go ahead.
Third shot.
Now that is...
That agent or that guy in the suit is very lucky.
Yeah.
It's very lucky.
This is, again, not to, we weren't there.
And then there's the last shot.
So she shot 4 times, I guess. When we weren't there, so I can't judge everything, but I can tell you that's not sound tactics whatsoever. Then you have everyone rushing in, leaving their post, mind you. So the big thing about this, like we spoke about earlier, is you have a post, you're supposed to set at your post and work your post, because what if it's a diversion? What if it's a secondary shooter? Yeah. There are people inside that ballroom, which we'll talk about later, that are actually there to do that close protection stuff. They're actually trained to do it, like closer protection stuff.
And one more thing I want to point out too, and again, we're not trying to nitpick. We're just trying to get everybody to understand kind of how some of these things go. If you look at the video, you look at the picture, those magnetometers have a lot of space on both sides of them, right? You have enough room for people to run around them, move around them. There's a little table on the left, a little table on the right, but you got too much area to control. And then you want to try to get everybody into a choke point where you don't give them room to move.
And then also I'll say too, this may have not what it looked like when they first got in there, but at the same time, you've got to maintain that security presence the entire time and not break it down just because, we're ready to go. I've been here 12 hours. So
yeah. Now, we'll say, here's a good point, though. Dale talked about everybody moving out of their points of dominance or moving out of their positions. If you watch the guy, I think it was the officer that had the canine, he does a good job turning his back to the scene and watches that hallway for further or secondary attacks coming through. So, Brent, just play this out. And you'll see that officer with the canine turns his back after the shooting takes place, and he's waiting for the second threat to come through. Does a really good job there.
And that's another thing in law enforcement. Everybody wants to run to the gunshots. Like, we're going to talk about this in future episodes when we talk about more of like how the police departments work. But sometimes it's like you just need to do your job. Let everyone else do their job. And it's that mentality of, I've got to go help somebody, which isn't a bad mentality. Don't get me wrong. It's just it degrades the whole plan.
So you got a lot of crossfire happening there. Everybody's moving. You keep going, Brent. Everybody's moving to their positions. Everybody's going. But you'll watch down the hallway that initial officer with the dog, he'll turn and face away. And actually, there he goes, looking for secondaries. Does a really good job there.
He did the best job of anybody there. And you also notice, too, the guy in the suit that almost got shot went to a knee. When you're responding to active shooters, that's for his safety, to be a smaller target. You just got to drive to the threat.
Again, I think that's just a natural human reaction that you have to train out of, and you have to force yourself into a position of, danger.
Right.
So you don't want to take that position because, again, Dale's talking about it's safer for him, but at the same time, look at the guy standing behind him who now has a muzzle at the same level as his head. So if that officer behind him were to take a shot, it could potentially hit him in the back of the head and cause a problem.
And I'll mention this real quick, too. Just let this video play out, Brent, and I'll just mention this, and we'll move on to the next ones. Like Eric said, you have multiple agencies, like in the prior attempts on his life, They're like, why do they talk on the radio? Well, because they don't have radios that talk to each other. Like, people don't understand there's not a lot of communication and how chaotic it is working those events because very few people from each agency are connected to one another. They just don't know, there could have been something on the Secret Service radio that the uniformed officers from DC didn't hear and didn't know. So it's very chaotic, and it's unfair to say that, they should have known what was going on because these scenes are so chaotic in and of themselves, withstanding it being the president.
So the next video coming up is going to be in the ballroom. I'm kind of talking through some of this, what's going on. Just play it all the way through if you don't mind. So what you're not hearing right now is a lot of chatter, silverware dishes being banged around a little bit, people talking. There was some gunfire that is going to be muzzled out in the hallway, and then people have a reaction to it. But inherently, what does everybody do? Nosy. Everybody's nosy. So, why should everybody should get on the ground and lay down? They're not going to. They're nosy. They're going to want to see what's going on. They're not really sure what's going on. Did it sound like gunfire? Is it not? So there's a little bit of hesitation. And then you have the PSD, the personal security detail. Those are the guys in the tuxes and the suits trying to fight to their what we call VIP, very important person. And they're trying to get to those positions. And then you'll see the tactical guys come out on stage. So kind of walking through, like you see the people moving around. There's the gunfire that goes on. They don't really sure what that is. You probably can't even hear it. You can probably hear it now because it's on video, but you in that room, you're not going to hear that gunfire.
Well, even though, like, we train people all the time with blank gunfire, and like gunfire inside of a structure is very hard to figure out where it's coming from or if it's gunfire.
Yep.
Was that firecrackers? We train people. If you think you hear a firecracker, you should not hear a firecracker in a structure. Treat it as gunshots. So I think we got
guys,
one more video.
You can just faintly hear it right here. Let me see if I can boost the audio for. I'm going to turn it up loud, so bear with me, audience. But let's see if we can hear it. Right there it is. You can hear a pop. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little slow reaction to it.
You see everybody's faces turn. See that? Watch everybody's face turn. There it is.
So they're not really sure. You're going to hesitate. It's just human nature, and then we get busy, and everybody's nosy. You'll see the Secret Service guys run out, and they're now protecting the president and the vice president. They're using their body as shields, and with the vice president, they did an exit, so they did a hasty exit.
Yeah, it's a term called plating. They're going to get their body armor in front of the protectee. Let's go to. I think we got one more to watch, and then we'll break kind of like our relationship with these details and what we've learned down on this one, because what happened inside there was textbook.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job inside. I think for what they're dealing with, I mean, you're fighting through a crowd, tables and chairs. It's a lot to deal with. So I think they did a great job. So let's kind of watch here. Again, a lot of the chatter, a lot of the noise. You're far away from that gunfire. It's going to be muzzled. People are talking to you. You're not going to hear it clear.
And also, too, you think you're one of the most secure events in the country. Like, so a lot of times people's mindset, they lose that vigilance because, nothing's going to happen here, right?
Yeah. So let's kind of pause here just a little bit at a time. So you'll see the Secret Service agent guys in the tuxedos coming out to plate or put their body as a shield in front of their protectees. Everybody else you think is going to lay down on the ground, it ain't going to happen. Everybody's trying to get their cell phones out. They're trying to video. They're trying to capture this stuff. It's chaos.
And like Eric earlier broke down the different like jobs in the Secret Service. The people up on that stage in the tuxes, that's their full-time job. They just do nothing but close protection. So like that's what they train for. Very well trained. I've worked with them a bunch of times. So
yeah, they do a great job.
They know exactly what they're doing.
So let's keep going a little bit, and we'll show you some of the tactical stuff. So now you start seeing these tactical SWAT-looking guys come out. These guys, if you could pause for a second here, these guys are called the CAT team, the counter assault team. We've done quite a bit of work with these guys in the past when they showed up here in town. You want to kind of explain how this broke down?
Yeah. So, honestly, we've seen enough of that video. Just we can go and pull it off the screen because we're done breaking that portion of it down. So it's the Secret Service's full-time dedicated SWAT team. We worked with them numerous times. Great group of people, very professional. Probably, I think we've worked with at least every single federal tactical unit, more or less. And those people are the best. Very professional. Had many details with them. We'll meet before. We take a picture of their uniform. They take a picture of ours. And I'm not going to go into the TTPs on like what goes on behind the scenes.
What are the TTPs do?
Tactics, techniques, and principles.
There you go.
I said it wrong.
What was the last one? What was the last one?
Tactics, techniques, and principles.
Got it.
So I'm not going to give you any information about how we work these details or what we do, other than to say that the people that work there, that's their only job, literally. So they're very highly trained, fairly highly skilled. Take their job very seriously.
They have good equipment.
They got great equipment. If you've seen the video, they've already got nods on, night vision goggles. We didn't get those until like, I don't know if they have them yet. Like that's like next level stuff. But the people inside that ballroom did exactly what they were supposed to do. It was a great response from what I saw.
So those tactical guys too, they're not going to necessarily run out of the room and charge the attacker or the threat, because again, they're processing information. They don't know exactly what's going on. So they're taking in information just like everybody else. And their job is to put themselves between the threat and the protectee, and to lay down fire, accurate fire when they can, when they identify the threat.
So what you didn't see going on behind the scenes, and we weren't there, so I'm just speculating. From these details in the past, there's going to be probably some designated areas that they plan to go to in case something like this happened. And the CAT team, their job is not to go seek out the threat. It's to be between the threat and the protectees. So like they're not going to go actually I don't want to get into TTPs, but they were doing exactly what they're supposed to do. So there's a lot of, that's the other thing too. There's a lot of stuff you don't see. It's not just like, hey, what are we going to do if something happens? There's plans for all that. So
so there's plans in place, and I thought they did a pretty good job overall.
And I'll say this too, and you may disagree. The further out you go on a perimeter like that or a detail, the less trained and skilled the people are, and the closer you get into the actual room, that's where you've got your best people. That's been my experience.
I would agree. So, Brent, based on what you saw and what we talked about, do you have any questions? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking that. I know we're getting to the point where we're wrapping up. I'm glad we can rewind, because I learned a lot. The only two things I think I'll bring up: watchers. That was funny, Dale. You brought a reference to watchers earlier. Watchers. I don't want to use that. Let's use something. And then nods for everybody out there. What nods stands for is night optical devices. I'm sitting here thinking, why do they have them on inside? But I guess the lights could go out, right?
Yeah, I can answer that. Like I said, it's, to me, if you have a weapon without a flashlight, you're wrong, because everybody's like, oh, I work day work and I don't need a flashlight. Well, I've been in plenty of foot pursuits in the middle of the day, and you end up in a dark building right in the middle of the day in a basement, and you need a flashlight because you can't see. Same thing with the nods, the tactical guys. They typically wear them. They're battery operated on their helmets, and they have them kind of flipped up out of the way so they can see under what we call white light. And then the minute the white light goes away, or it gets dark in a room, the lights go out, electricity, is lost. They can immediately flip those down, and their weapons also have sights that align with those night vision, so now they can see it in the dark.
Yeah, laser designator. That's a great point you bring up. Like, you have to plan for everything that could go wrong, and that's why those guys and girls are so professional. Like, I may not need this. There's a 1% chance I'm going to need this, but I'm going to take it with me, because if I need it, I need it. So it's smart.
I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
That's why you spoke so highly of that team. That's really cool. What else, guys? We covered a lot. Like I said, I'm really glad the listeners can. Man,
that's about it on this one. Like, so that's the point of the channel, is we're going to start doing more stuff like this, because there's so many people out there that have questions, and I feel like sometimes there are people that are trying to explain it that maybe talk over people's heads, or they don't explain it to where the average person can understand, and they don't give a lot of reasons why. So we're trying to cover a lot of those angles and give you perspectives. And again, we don't know all the answers. We're giving you based on what we know and what we see, and we're doing our best to try to explain it.
And the last thing I'll close with is this. There's a lot of influencers and people who go on TV in this space that talk like they have knowledge, and they really don't. Like, and I'm not going to call anybody out. Everything we talk about on this channel is something we have personal experience with, unless we talk about something outside of that, and then we'll say, hey, This
We don't know
isn't-
what we're talking about.
We're just speculating completely on this. So we want to focus on stuff that we have experience with so we can give you our informed opinion based on our experience, because there's so many opinions out there. It's like, we're trying to get something out there that we know that from our perspective is real.
Yep.
Well, I'll play the role of the citizen asking those questions. And I invite everybody to join me in this. This is fascinating stuff. I've learned a lot. Subscribe. I want to encourage you to comment and ask further questions. Not only will we respond to those on this channel, but we'll also turn it into future episodes.
Sure.
And with that, folks, we really appreciate you stopping by the Hard Corner podcast. We're going to continue bringing this incredible information your way. Stay tuned for the next episode coming up. And don't forget, like, subscribe, share, comment. Let's hear from all of you. Thanks, everybody. See you later.